Good morning, Vietnam!
Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning back into episode number 101 of the White Knuckle podcast, powered by Ozonics. Undetectable, undeniable. Well, here we are on episode number 2 of I'm not sure how many in our tribute to Todd. Again, if anybody wants to say something and they haven't had the chance to say something, please do so. Just reach out to me via email, jason@whiteknuckleproductions.com, and I'll do my very best to get you on the show. I think that's all the housekeeping stuff that I've got for today. Let's get on with today's show. Here we go with episode number 2 of, again, I'm not sure how many, in our tribute to Mr. Todd Pringnitz. So, hey, what's up, Dan? We're here at the 2019 Iowa Deer Classic, and Mr. Dan Johnson, Dallas-Fort Worth himself, is in the booth.
That's crazy because, and I know what this podcast is about today, but I'm going to start off with a story.
All right.
Because the first time, this is no joke. I was living in Alabama, and my buddy Brent Rich, I don't know if you met him, but he's friends with Todd. And I was living in Alabama. I was towards the end of my life, towards the end of my time in Alabama, and my buddy Brent Rich is like, "Hey man, are you going to move back to Iowa?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm going to move back to Iowa." "Well, when you do, man, I got this guy. He just moved from Michigan, and you need to meet him, right?" And so I'm like, "Okay, whatever." Like a month and a half, 2 months go by, and I didn't think anything of it. My buddy Brent calls me one night, and he says, Hey, you got time to come out to the bar with me? This guy, Todd, I want to introduce you to. And so I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll go. And I meet these guys out at a bar called Keogh's in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, right? Like throughout the time that I knew Todd, we hung out there a lot, right?
Yep.
And so Todd stands up, puts his hands out. "Hey man, how you doing?" I go, and Todd had a couple beverages in his system by then. He goes, "Hey, I'm Todd. How you doing? What's your name?" I said, "My name's Dan." And he goes, "Dallas?" I said, and the music's not even on, right? The music's not on, and I'm just like, "No, Dan Johnson." And he goes, "Dallas? Dallas-Fort Worth?" And I shit you not, that was the birth of Dallas-Fort Worth. Todd gave me that nickname the first time he ever met me. Yep.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So that was the genesis of Dallas-Fort Worth.
Yep.
So you were with Todd really very shortly after the beginning, weren't you?
Yeah, I mean, my first ever kill on a camera, actually my first ever bow kill period, was on the Beyond the Kill DVD. So...
Oh, it was?
Yeah, I think it was Beyond the Kill. I don't know if it was Beyond the Kill or what was the one after that, The Grind, right?
The Grind.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It was on one of those two, but I know that I was there from damn near day one when like guys like Wally and
Tater.
like the Nevar brothers, like that whole crew was there, and yeah, I mean it was, and then from there it was just like. He starts talking about, yeah, man, I'm doing this thing where I'm putting out hunting DVDs and shit like that, and like and I go, okay, like what's this all about? He's like, well, I'm gonna make hunting videos. And,
it's a pyramid scheme.
Right. I'm just like, whatever, like, and I say this in the nicest way possible, but as we all know, Todd was a little weird, right? Like
a little.
If he was a recipe, he would be like a pinch of anal, a pinch of crazy, a pinch of like cocky, but like it was all that shit mixed together that made you kind of want to hang out with this crazy guy, right? And so I found myself like hanging out with him a little bit more, and he starts talking about this hunting thing, and I was at that time in my life, I had moved away. Hunting was kind of on the back burner. I didn't do it much. So then he kind of was like, he was part of the reason that the flame to hunting was relit. So I meet him, and within like 2 months, so I got my finger cut off in an industrial accident. So I got this money that came to me, and I blew that on a bow, on a camera arm, on arrows, on a rest, on a sight. So I dropped like $5,000 because I met this dude.
And your finger paid for it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It paid for a house, or a down payment on a house, and it paid for a ton of archery equipment, camo. Like I went to Shields, and the guy's mouth just started watering when I told him what I was looking for.
And then so how many different videos were you on?
Ooh, man, I don't even remember.
5, 6,
5 or 6. I remember 2006 is when I shot my first. It was like the fall. I think it was the fall of 2006. No, I take that back. It was the fall. It was fall of 2006. I shot my first deer, but then I remember, like, he started doing this thing called shed hunting, right? And I was like, what the hell is shed hunting? Like, I don't even know if I knew what that deer at that point in my life lost their antlers every year, right? So like, you get educated, and so 2006 is when I met him, and then just from there, the journey began.
So you got the opportunity, as did I this year, to hunt with Todd.
Yeah.
In a tree.
Yeah.
What was that like?
It's different, right? So with this $5,000 that I spent, right? Here's a story. So we all know Todd is this really anal, retentive, run and gun hunter who was very particular about setting up and making sure everything was in its particular place every time. Right. So I bought this lone wolf, and I bought 4 sticks, and I'm like, dude, I am a mobile hunter now, right? So I practiced setting up a couple times. And this is actually a time where Todd actually came and filmed me on a piece of property. And he's got his stand on his back, and I got my setup on my back, and I get to the bottom of the tree. I start setting it up. And I guess it wasn't satisfactory for Todd, because we get to the bottom of the tree, and I start setting up, and you know how he is. He's just like, come on, let's go. Chop, chop, let's go. Come on, here we go. Let's go. And we get to the bottom, and he's just pushed me out of the way. He set the tree stand up for me.
Yep.
Right? So it was just this, I ain't got time to screw around. Let's get in the tree. Let's start hunting, right? And and so that is what it was like in a tree. Just like, the reason this dude was so good at finding and locating big deer is because he was so anal about all the small details, right?
Oh my God, I had no idea.
Yeah.
I got to hunt with him for the first time ever this year.
Yeah.
Our first time out was on the 90.
Yeah.
And we get out of the truck, and he looks at me, and he says, and I haven't told the story yet, so I'll tell one now. He gets out of the truck, and he looks at me, and he says, I'm doing everything. And I said, what do you mean? He's like, I'll set everything up. Don't touch anything.
Yeah.
Just carry the stand in. I'm like, okay.
Okay.
So we walked in, and I've probably said this before, but it was like, I felt like I was walking through the jungle in Nam.
Right.
Because Todd, did he do that to you too? Give you the hand signal to stop?
No. Well, sometimes he would.
Yeah.
Sometimes he would, but a lot of the times it was just like he would let you know if you were making too much noise.
Oh, yeah.
Or if you were doing something wrong. Like, he would let you know, like... Like, I don't understand why he even had a cameraman at some times, because I was in the tree recording him one time, and he was like, hey man, check the camera, do this, put it this way. I'm just like, dude, do you want to do it? I mean, because there's no point in me being here.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So well, first of all, we got into this spot, and he sets up on in a stand that's at like a 45-degree angle maybe to the ground.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, setting up the stand. And I said, you'll never get a stand in there. He said, just be quiet.
Yeah.
And I did. And he got it in there. But anyway, we're sitting up there, and I'm looking around, and finally he grabs my shoulder, because he was the cameraman that night. He grabs my shoulder, and he very seriously looks at me and says, if you snap your neck one more time like that, I'm going to snap your neck.
Well, it's crazy, because every time you hear a story like that of him, or, we tell a story with each other about how anal he was, at the same time, this dude would sit in an apple, or eat an apple in the tree. He was like he would eat this apple really loud, and I'm like, dude, you just gave me shit for breathing heavy,
right.
And now you're here just like munching on an apple. He's like, that's not a whitetail threat. Like, don't worry about it. This doesn't scare whitetails.
Well, but what made me a believer is we went through all this trouble. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just want to walk in there like, Sasquatch and climb up in a tree and enjoy myself. And he's, we're just like a ninja through the woods, and I'll be darned if, then he wanted to show me how the tree thrasher would work, because I had my skepticism towards it to begin with. And I'll be darned if, a deer didn't stand up probably 100 yards down the hill there.
Yeah.
And ended up walking into us. So I'm like, okay, I guess I have been doing it all wrong.
That's funny, man. Yeah, just a lot of tree stand time, and it was weird, because when I was with White Knuckle and Wicked and all that stuff, I just remember him, like, he would get an email from a fan, right? He would be, hey man, I got this deer. This deer's doing this on. He would take the time out to send an email to one of these fans that, like, hey man, I love what you're doing, all this stuff. But for me, I'd go over to him and I'd be like, okay, dude, I just saw a giant. I need you to let's talk about this. I want to get on him. He's like, yeah, you need to move. I'm like, what do you mean? Yeah, dude, you need to move. You need to move. I'm like, okay, any other details? You can maybe help me out. Let's take a look at this map. Dude, I don't have time for that. Just move. And I'm like, well, thanks for nothing, asshole, right? But what it did was it made me open my eyes and observe more, and it made me think outside the box, and it made me slow down when I walked into the woods looking for sign, looking for where I needed to be, as opposed to, I educated myself instead of having someone else educate me, and then, you come back to that again. Instead, next time, I didn't go ask him. I just did it, right? So it was kind of almost like tough parenting. You know what I mean? Like tough love. Like, dude, go do it. Just make it happen. Go do it. So
exactly. Yeah, he was so confident in what he believed in. Convicted.
Yeah.
I guess would be a better word. He just completely believed in it. And like he'd send me out this year. He'd send me, you got to go to this stand. I'm like, no. Yeah, that's where you're going. And he'd be like a coach almost, trying to get you excited about it. But
that was a different experience, and I don't know. It was maybe because I knew Todd a little different, and like I was friends with him. And then that friendship kind of expanded into business as well. And it was just a really different experience where he showed principles, but never held my hand doing anything, right? But showed me, here, just move, dude. You got to make moves. And, there the mobile hunter in myself kind of was born at that point. So
awesome. Anything else?
Oh, dude,
I know. 8
years, I could sit here and tell 8 years worth of stories, man. Just we
had a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, we'd come to these trade shows, right? I mean, back in the day when I was 27, 28 years old, like I'm 38 now with 3 kids. I don't do what we used to do at these trade shows. And man, we partied and we had such a good time. And I'll be honest with you, like that time frame in my life was probably some of the best times I ever had in my life, right? I get to meet guys like you, like I mentioned, Shane Wiest. Truly, I can honestly say this, one of my best friends, period, Ryan Iberg, you know. She's like Lucas Psycho, right? I'm still in contact with a lot of these guys, the Nevars, man. I had a blast shed hunting with those guys. And I know there's like 50 other people that you forget out, but I mean, this community's awesome. Like, it's awesome.
It's really shown through here at the show, and it's been a blessing to see how people, you know, sort of all lay their guns down for a few days and rally together, because it's the right thing to do, and not that there'd be any reason not to, but it's just been refreshing to see, you know, people really just come together for a great cause. And you know, Katie's got a long road ahead of her.
So I got a story for you.
All right.
It deals with his wife. So you know that when it's whitetail season, I mean, there's nothing else that goes on except the whitetails, right? In his life. And I remember, I don't even know what it was. It's just like 365 whitetails all the time. The schedule revolved around whitetails and what they were doing. If you're shed hunting, if you're scouting, if you're setting stands, food plots, whatever. And I remember like calling him up one day and like, hey, dude, we doing this today? We're gonna go do this? Like we had something to do, and he's like, nah, I got a date tonight. I'm just like, what? Like, since when do you make changes to your schedule for a girl? Right? You've never done that with anybody else. Right? So I sit back and I'm just like, this girl must be somewhat special to him if he's giving up some kind of whitetail part of his life to go hang with this chick. Right? And come to find out, their first date, I think, was like in a creek where they just walked up and down in a creek. But I don't like, you'd have to talk to Katie about that. I'm pretty sure that might have been it.
I've heard something about that. Yeah.
And the other thing that made me say, you know, this girl is special is every time she'd get poison ivy really bad. Right?
By looking at it.
Yeah, just by looking at it. And I remember just getting my ass chewed by him one day saying, dude, you got to wash your hands first. Then you got to put the alcohol on it. Then you got to rub it, because if you're covered in it, Katie's going to get it. You know, Katie can't have it anymore, blah, blah, blah. And so, like, all these extra steps that were taken just so she didn't get poison ivy. And like, in the past, none of that really mattered. And, it's just... it's funny because I could sit here, let's see, I don't even know, how long have we been recording? That's not 43 minutes, is it?
No. Justin Czar was here last night. He took like 20 minutes.
So I could literally sit here for an entire day and talk about like all these things that we've done. I mean, I'm watching the screen right here. I was with him when I was the camera guy when he shot the world record, turkey.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And you want to talk about, okay, so it's funny, so this guy gets crazy when he shoots a whitetail, right? You know, he shoots a giant whitetail, he goes crazy. He shoots the world record turkey, and it's just like, cool, I just shot a world record turkey. Like, I don't give a shit. It didn't.
How did that start? Tell me the truth. I've heard 100 versions. Not to interrupt you, but how did it actually go down? I've never heard his version.
Okay.
And I never will, so it's probably better that I don't, because...
So, I don't even know. I don't even remember if it was his turkey decoy or my turkey decoy, but we were mowing. Somebody was mowing a ditch, and there was this old turkey decoy in a ditch full of ants, and just like... it was garbage. It was basically garbage, but we found it and we're like, okay, well, this is what we have, so we're going to use it. Put an arrow in the ground, set this turkey decoy out on, I mean, there was holes in it from where someone had shot it with a shotgun before, just like screwing around with it. And that's what we used. We were in some hay bale blind on one of his food plots back on his farm. And you want to talk about two guys that didn't know shit about turkey hunting? We had this old box call, and it just basically sounded like a old screen door. But we must have hit this Tom at the right time, because he would respond every time to this. And it took him like an hour to come in, and he didn't strut at all. And then one time, I was calling because Todd didn't know what he was doing.
Right.
And because I was like I sucked the least out of the two of us when it would come to calling. And so this turkey, he was on a hen. He came around and he turned around and he's just like, well, I guess I'll go check this thing out. He pops out of this little mowed area, thum, blows up, full strut, starts coming his way in. And Todd's like, we film everything, right? So, you got him? Yeah, I got him. Lets the arrow go, smokes this turkey, runs into the field, and he's like, I think I killed it. He's like, I think I shot him. I think I killed it. I turn the camera on him. He does his interview. We go, we get out of the blind. The turkey's laying there dead. It wanders through. He picks it up, and it just starts going crazy, flopping again. He drops it. He gets surprised, and then we do what turkey hunters do, stepping on its head, and it was. And at the end of the day, we had this thing already dismembered, taking the breast out of it and stuff. When we had another guy within the hunting industry say, "Man, this could be a record turkey, a record buck turkey." So the next day we take the whole turkey down to, I don't know, maybe the breasts were still in it. But anyway, we put this turkey in a garbage bag. We drive down to Missouri to some official scorer that's a taxidermist. And the guy measures it, weighs it, measures the spurs, measures the weight, measures all the combination of all the beards. And sure enough, it came out to be I think it might have been beaten by now, but I'm not sure. But it was it became the world record at that point, and it was crazy, just how it worked out. And then celebrate with some Bell's beers, and nuts, just crazy, just outside shed hunting. 8 years of just craziness. This dude was on a different level.
Right.
I don't know. He was. There wasn't they say there was a mold that was broken when certain, they say they broke the mold with this one. There was no mold for this guy. He's just He was a unique creature, man.
Well, there you have it, Mr. Dallas Fort Worth himself, Dan Johnson. Dan, thanks for stopping by the booth at the Iowa Deer Classic and sharing some stories with Todd. We appreciate you taking your time to do that. We know that we probably could have kept you there for several hours. I don't know that we could have told all the stories, but definitely there is a bunch of good ones. So thanks again, Dan, for taking time to do that. Next up is Kyle Reinders. Kyle was Todd's cameraman when Todd wasn't self-filming, and Kyle was around from the very beginning. From the absolute genesis of White Knuckle Productions, Kyle was there, and he sat in a closet in Mount Pleasant for several years and edited DVDs and made things possible so that the show could go on, so to speak. But I was able to connect with Kyle shortly before we were headed off to Todd's service there in Mount Pleasant on that Saturday morning. So here's my conversation with Kyle Reinders. So I'm here with longtime cameraman, sidekick, whatever else Todd referred to you as. Kyle Reinders, our executive producer for White Knuckle. And we're just a few hours, actually, now before Todd's funeral. What's some of your favorite memories, Kyle?
I don't know. That's good. The first one that comes to mind is thinking about the night that we got Barry Sanders. It was Halloween, yeah. And so we went in, and we weren't there that long, and Barry comes walking up and shoots him and then runs off, and we're not sure what happened. But the cool part was then, I don't know, after he's done freaking out and making that face that we all,
Right.
have become so accustomed to, and calmed down a little bit. And I think he's on his phone texting whoever, and I'm like, Todd, there's a deer coming. Like, there's another deer coming. He didn't hear me. Todd, there's a deer coming. And I had to tell him about 3 times. He's like, huh, what's going on? I'm like, and sure enough, here comes, he was calling him Sippy Cup then. But it was actually Rusty Nail.
Okay.
Came up and fouled right where Barry went, and then walked off and went back and walked the other way, and then came up and did a scrape. And then that was the time that we got to, there was a good Ozonics test because he was right downwind, and Todd was just flowing those little the
milkweed seeds.
Yeah. Like it was nobody's business. But yeah, that was definitely a fun night.
You had a lot of them.
Yeah.
What was what was Todd like to sit in a tree with?
Well, one of the things that I think about was that made our relationship unique versus other people. As I was thinking about it, was a lot of our relationship was quiet. And if you know Todd, that wasn't necessarily how he was the rest of the time.
Right.
But I think it was, like you guys all know, there's times where we had great times, that night with Barry Sanders, other times where it seemed like the deer never stopped, like it was a train constantly coming through and getting bucks that we were chasing after in the good times. But, there's hard times too. There's times where you go a week and you don't see a deer. There's times where all you see are birds and squirrels in the woods. And I think it's easy to get down in those times. And there were times where we definitely got down and on ourselves and just wondering if our luck would ever change. But I feel like he always had a joke in his back pocket or, something to think light of the mood. There was a lot of pressure. If you think about early days, like starting the DVD and trying to make sure we had enough content and bucks to chase after. But I don't think he ever let it get him down,
No, this year I had the opportunity to hunt with him for the first time ever, and it didn't dawn on me till probably a couple weeks in how much pressure Todd had on himself to produce. But the cool thing about him producing is that he was never going to sacrifice his ideals, his ethics, his morals, any of that stuff. He was never going to shoot a lesser buck for the sheer purpose of putting it on a video. And in spite of all the trials and tribulations that he went through, it did seem like he was always positive. He wasn't the kind of guy to sit around and, whine about it, was he?
No, and that's the thing, that I think about, that I admired about him, is if you think about even from building his whatever product he was designing and building, he never settled for less than the best. And honestly, that could probably be annoying at times when we would set up a tree stand and get all the way set up, set the camera up, get everything set. Well, you know what? Actually, that one 10 feet over there is actually probably going to be better. So tear down and then move over there and set up. But, I feel like he never stopped trying to be better.
Right.
Trying to do better.
There's so many facets to Todd. It's hard to condense it all into a 5-minute interview. But is there a way that you would describe his style of hunting, having hunted with him so much?
I think his biggest thing is probably keep moving. I think his biggest thing that I always pushed was it's easy to go out there and sit in the same stand. Maybe you've hunted for years, to more or less settle. And I don't think, like I just talked about, I don't think he ever settled in that. I think that was kind of what made him good. What he would always push it, keep pushing. How can we make this better? How can we get a better chance to get on this buck. And I think really that was his hunting style, is just to always be changing, always be improvising, always be striving to get a little closer.
You know, the one thing that I've noticed just watching from, I'm going to call it afar, even the last 3 years, as involved as I've been in the productions, or whatever you want to call it. The one thing that I hear over and over again is, does that stuff really happen? Does he really think that much about it? You know, like a good example of that would be Walter Payton. You know, well, he came in and he was on this, weekly circuit. And did you see a lot of that stuff happening?
You mean as far as what?
Like he had a specific plan. Like when he would go into, did he share? So a lot of people go into their hunting season and they have a plan. Todd always had a plan. Like there was purpose to everything that he did. Like some of it I thought was absolutely crazy, and now I'm realizing that maybe it wasn't.
Oh yeah.
Did you get to like is there a time where you got to hear a crazy idea of what he felt like a buck was doing, where you thought in the back of your head, this is absolutely ridiculous? Because I can imagine you have your own opinions. I mean, you didn't blindly just trust. If you're like me, you didn't blindly just take for granted that everything you were saying would come to fruition. Can you think of a time where he said, we're going to do it, we're going to go in, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this because of this reason, and it actually worked out?
I'm trying to think of a specific situation, but kind of the joke was that I always joked with him is it seemed like every time we went out, the weather's perfect, the wind's doing this, it's a kill day. That was what he would always say, it's a kill day.
It's a kill day.
And so I feel like after 10 years of that, I'd be like, okay, I'm not going to get excited. Because at the beginning, I'd be like, yeah, it's a kill day, let's do this. And then you hear that for 10 years, and you're like, okay, well, it could happen today, but,
right.
And I think that was his, his positivity. I think that's how he, like, today's going to be it, And I can't think of a certain circumstances, but I don't think there's anything he did in hunting that wasn't thought through and to be in his mind. I got a little bit of that in all the interviews he would do and talk about why we're here and why we're doing this. But I think that probably just scratched the surface even. Sure.
He was always upbeat. Everyone that's probably on this interview is, talked about how upbeat he was, but you mentioned him saying it was a kill day this year, when I hunted with him. Again, I got a real life glimpse into Todd's world, and it was just, everything was positive. I'm like, oh my gosh, shut up, it's not positive. The wind is 20 miles an hour. It's like 13 degrees. It sucks. EHD's killed everything. The game warden just told us, stop telling me it's a kill day, but he was. He was going to make lemonade out of lemons, or whatever analogy you want to use, but I saw him do that time and again, and I can see where he would be like your coach, trying to keep you ready for the next round. Any other final thoughts?
I don't know. What else do you want me to say?
Whatever you want to say.
I'm trying to think. I think I'm good. Are you good? You got an ending?
No.
Are you going to tie them all together? Or?
Yeah, I'll tie them all together somehow. And, yeah, we're recording.
Yeah, I don't know. I think as I look back over the last 13 years, I think I'm just thankful for the opportunity that Todd provided, to just think that I was able to come to Iowa, to wake up every morning and go sit in the woods, to watch the sunrise, to watch God's creation come alive, and to chase big bucks. I mean, and to think that was my job, and that's something that I got to do with him. I'm just thankful for that opportunity and all the good times that we got to have together.
What was it like, now that you said that, what was it like watching Todd mature?
Yeah, throughout this whole process, I think that's something that I'm most proud of him, When I look back at the man that I met 13 years ago in the Walmart parking lot in Mount Pleasant, and then see how he's grown in his faith, and see how he's grown as a husband and as a father, I don't know, makes me proud to be his friend, proud of him and the way that he's grown and the way that he's changed.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. He just, inside of 10 years of doing this, 11 years of doing this, we've all had our ups and downs. Certainly he did too. But it was really fun watching him sort of come into his own here the last year and speak publicly. We did the seminar at Deer Fest, and just watching him come into his own and finally just feel like you could almost feel like the water's calmed for him to a degree. Didn't you think?
Yeah.
Well, thanks again to Kyle for taking time to share his memories with Todd. That wasn't an easy conversation for either of us to have. Quite honestly, none of them are, but the one with Kyle was definitely tough. Kyle and Todd shared a special bond. Next up, we have Mr. Ted Miller. Hey, Ted, Jason Science.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm all right. How are you?
Great.
Good. Sounds like you're laid up, huh?
No, I had a little surgery on the foot, I guess. It's what happens when you get old, I guess.
Well, yeah, none of us are getting any younger, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I guess if there's have you guys had as rotten a winter as everybody else? Yeah, you're in Iowa, so of course you have. You've had a rotten winter too. Good Lord, it's been horrible.
Yeah, if you like cold weather and snow, I guess the Midwest is where you want to be this year, I guess.
Yeah, no doubt. It's been not a lot of fun, that's for sure. So, all right. All I'm doing is giving people a chance to tell their favorite Todd story. I guess what I've been doing is starting out with how you ran into Todd, how you guys how you got involved with White Knuckle, and then and go from there. I guess wherever you want to go with it's fine with me, and we'll it'll be short and sweet and to the point, and so honestly, just talk about whatever you want if that's okay.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm here with Mr. Miller himself, Ted Miller. Ted, tell me first, before we get too far into this, how did you guys ever come across each other?
Well, originally met Todd up at the Iowa Deer Classic. I don't know. It's probably been going on 10 or so years ago, I suppose. But just, I don't know, just kind of randomly was up there cruising the booze and stopped and talked to Todd, and I didn't really know who he was at the time, and could tell he was real passionate about white-tailed deer, and I got showing him, I think I had a couple of horizontal rub clips on my iPad or something that I was showing people, and it really kind of sparked his interest, and just we kind of from there just asked him if I could send him some footage for his videos, and he thought that'd be great. Never really, he didn't know me from Adam or anything. Just kind of started from there, and sent him a few videos, and he evidently liked what I sent him, and from there, he was just nice enough to include me in his videos that he made. He never, you tell he was just passionate about deer. I was not real. Well, I never really shot a lot of deer on video, and I think probably the first deer I ever shot on video was on the white knuckle videos or whatever, and I passed a lot of bucks, and he had no problem with me not making a kill or anything like that. He just just tell he was passionate about deer, and I guess if it wouldn't have been for him, I probably wouldn't be doing videos to this day, probably. So. Yeah.
So you were doing just videos on your own at that point before you met him?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah,
okay. Just for fun.
Yeah, I
gotcha.
Just videoing my own stuff. I always videoed, but trying to get my footage out there or something like that. I'd never really even tried to do it, and didn't know how to go about doing it, and just like I say, just through that original conversation with Todd, I just kind of found an outlet, to kind of get my foot in the door, and he gave that to me, so
gotcha.
I owe him a lot, but probably, I don't know, my favorite memories of him is probably at the Deer Classic. I worked or helped out at the booth a couple of times up there, and I wasn't a salesman or anything, but it was fun talking to people and hawking the goods, so to speak, selling the tree saws and the videos and stuff.
Yep.
I mean, that was all new experience to me, and it was just, Todd, he's passionate about what he was selling, and I think that kind of rubbed off on everybody else, and it was just a good time up there selling stuff. I mean, it was fun. There was a lot of people, and good times.
Yeah, I can definitely relate, having just gotten done there this weekend, and it was a busy weekend with everything that was going on, but no one could sell a product or his product like Todd, and people would ask me, well, how are sales? And I'd say, they're okay. That we didn't set the world on fire, but I realized Todd wasn't there. I mean, I knew Todd wasn't there, but I just realized part of the reason we're not setting the world on fire is because, Todd wasn't there. And there was nobody better at selling his own product than Todd, and that would stand to reason, I guess. But
yeah, you could tell he, believed 100% in what he'd created and what he put into something. So really, he didn't, have to sell it. I mean, it just basically, he knew it was good and what it was, and just that would just come through with his personality and just talking to you. But it would just, he's probably the most enthusiastic, I would say, deer person that I'd ever known. Just being enthusiastic about the deer itself and the industry behind it and everything. I mean, I don't think I've ever met anybody with more passion for the industry and sport that's Todd. It was just who he was.
Well, that is a fact. I don't think that there's another Todd out there, and he's definitely going to be missed. Next up, we have Lucas Psycho, and Lucas is going to round out the show for this week. We may have one more show next week, just depending upon schedules and all of that good stuff. So if you want to be on the show and you've got something that you want to share, be sure to get in touch with me, Jason at whiteknuckleproductions.com. I'll be more than happy to do an interview with you when time allows. With my new career, It seems like I'm getting busier every day, which is a great thing, but this is paramount to me right now, and I want to get as many people's memories that they can share about Todd on the air as we possibly can, because it's definitely going to be something that I'll listen to over and over again, and I'm sure many of you will as well. With that, we'll get on to Mr. Lucas Psycho. Before we get started with Lucas, I should preempt all this by saying that somehow part of his conversation got cut off, so we're going to catch up here right in the middle of a pretty darn good story. Were you there for the one that where I don't know, there was a lot of booze and a lot of beer that was already drank, and one of the Nevars brought down that remember that big wooden sign that they made, the Nevars made, that had White Knuckle Productions on it, and we all shot it with a, were you there for that? When we all shot it with a broadhead?
No, I think that was when I was just getting it, but I remember seeing it and hearing all about it.
Oh my God.
And I think that was right before I joined. I'm pretty sure it was not even like maybe a year. I think it might have been the year before, because I remember that. I remember that specifically. Yeah. But the time I was thinking about was we came down, and it was for the film school, and I mean I remember Curtis Zala was there, Mark Kenyon, and I'm drawing a blank there. There's a couple other pro staffers that were there with us. Oh, Tim, and what was his wife's name? I'm drawing a blank, but there was. You know what I'm talking about? Tim and I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on her name right now.
Tim.
They were there.
Wasn't he with that crew from Kansas?
Dang it! I'm trying to remember. Oh, I hate it when the old brain doesn't work.
Yeah, I feel like I know who you're talking about, but I can't remember.
Yeah, gosh, dang it.
He got stuck in Madison at the show and bought a truck from me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and what the heck, Tim? Oh, it was just on the tip of my tongue.
I know, it's right there for me too. It was driving me nuts, man. Oh gosh, I was just trying to look it up and everything, but I can't seem to find it. Tim and Megan Thacker.
Timmy Thacker.
Yes,
that's
Tim
right.
And Megan.
Were you?
That's who it is.
Was that the year that Brandon Phipps passed out on Todd's his island?
I'm not sure, Matt. Well, it was. All I know is it was a hell of a good time. I mean, I know Dan Johnson was there, Kyle. Oh man, it was crazy, and we ended up coming up with this great idea to light these arrows on fire and try to shoot them. And I think we must have went through 5 to 10 gallons of gas just trying to. And Todd, you know how Todd is. He comes up with an idea, and so his engineer mind was just like, oh, we got to figure this out. And so we were taping extra arrows together. He had Katie's feminine products strapped on there because we like, we need more. we need.
Oh
we need
my
to
God, that's
more.
right. Yeah. Right, exactly.
And we were all like, oh my God. Katie was like, what is going on? We're like, you were digging through her freaking stuff in the bathroom, and she's like, what are you guys doing? We need these. No, it was just a shit show. But God dang, I remember how much fun that was. One of my favorite parts of that whole trip. This was basically my first time like really hanging out with everybody. I met everybody at the Wisconsin Deer and Turkey Expo in Madison for the first time. But
how did you get involved? If I can just interrupt you.
Yeah. Well, basically, I went down to Carlinville, Illinois. A buddy of mine had actually set up a hunt.
Okay.
And I didn't know Keith Graham. I didn't know about White Knuckle. I didn't know about any of this. My buddy Brandon Fox, this is what's really crazy. It's kind of funny how it all came to be.
Right.
So my buddy Brandon Fox is living with me and Jen in this trailer house, and we're going to high school, going to college at the time, and actually I think I was working by then. But anyways, we're living in this trailer house. He's living with us, and he's splitting rent with us and whatever.
Sure.
some of the best days ever when you're just broke, right? You don't got
Right.
anything going on. You're living in a trailer house, but you look back and you're like, those are good times. But anyways, he sets up this hunt, and he's like, Psycho, I'm going to take us on this big deer hunt. We're going to go down. And, we were at that time, you're always looking at all the Midwest hunts and stuff on, and the DVDs, and Illinois, and Iowa, and all these Kansas, all these states were just, but Illinois was like always, it seemed like it was pretty popular at the time. And so he found this Keith Graham's hunting adventures, and he went about and set up this hunt for both of us.
Okay.
He backs out like the last 2 weeks and can't go. And now I'm going by myself at this point.
Nice.
So I called Keith and I was like, hey, is there any chance I could get my dad to just come along, and like, maybe buy a tag or whatever, and he ended up just giving us, he was like, yeah, just tell him to come along. Tell him to come along. You don't need to come by yourself. I don't know if you know Keith Graham much, but that guy is, about as nice as they come to.
Good as gold, yep.
And, yeah. And so we get down there, and we're hunting and everything, and I brought a bunch of my footage from up here. And in going back and forth with Keith over that weekend, we were exchanging stories and everything, and I was like, matter of fact, I brought some DVDs down of some of the stuff and some highlights and stuff of what I'd been doing. He watches it, and, like, he just lights up. And he's like, you remind me of somebody. And I'm like, wow, he was trying to put a finger on it. And finally he goes, Todd Pringnitz. He's like, you remind me of Todd from White Knuckle, your passion and enthusiasm and all this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I got to get you hooked up. My son is, hunting with that pro staff. That was Derek Graham.
Graham, yep.
And Quinn Ryer.
Yep.
And so he's like, I got to get you in touch with these guys. He's like, you would fit right in with those guys, and this and that. And so he basically got Todd to check out some of my footage. I sent it to Todd, and that rest is history there, because Todd literally called me, and that high-pitched, squeaky, just crackling, just can't hardly even talk, how he gets on a phone when he gets overly excited, or
Yep.
just right, anytime.
Yep.
And I couldn't hardly understand who I was talking to, because he was watching the video at the time, and he was just laughing, and he was just all jacked up and stoked, and he was just like, Psycho! For the first time. That's why it stuck. He never did call me anything other than Psycho, Psycho, it's Todd from Iowa, White Knuckle Productions and shit. And he's like, I'm watching your footage, man. You have to be on our team. He's just like yelling at me, and I'm just like, holy shit, is this real? At that point, I thought it was like making the big time, I was like, holy shit, I'm making it. I always dreamed, I was always dreamt to put my stuff out so everybody could see it, and I wanted to be on a pro staff, and, that was the thing, right?
Right.
And so, he invited me along, and there was the next spring there is when I think, when that show was in Wisconsin was happening, so he invited me down because he wanted to meet me and go over how everything's going to work, and, and this and that for the upcoming season, and get me involved, and introduce me to everybody and all that stuff. So when I went down there, and, lo and behold, like, of course, he just comes running right when he sees me. I see him, and walking up to the booth, and he's like, holy cow, everybody, the Psycho's in the house. And he was just like, he comes over, he gives me this biggest hug, You remember, and that was just the thing, like,
right.
When you think about friends, I think we all have those friends. Like, I think just generally, at least I hope everybody does. You have those friends that hug, like you have those friends that like hug you.
Yep.
And then, but then there's people like Todd that just hugs everybody, like he just makes you feel like you matter to him, and it was like always, he always welcomed you like that. And that's what I'm going to miss the most, man. Like, just because I knew he was such a genuine guy, like, just talking to him about anything. We'd sit on the phone at night sometimes, and I mean, that was most of what our relationship was, really, because we never got a whole lot of time to do anything else other than go to shows together or come down. I visited him a few times down there.
Yep.
And he was so busy with Wicked, I wasn't about to drag him up here and tell him he's got to come up here and that and whatever. I was just always pumped to go, and because just being down there with him and seeing how he runs runs his property and in the business and everything, and just watching him grow into what he had built now, that house and everything. And it's just been awesome to be a part of that. And I just tell you what, like, I'm going to miss those calls, dude. Like, just randomly, too. Like, it'd just be random, 8:30 at night, and, like, winding down, just thinking that, day's pretty much over and it's about ready to fall asleep, and you get a call from Todd. Now I'm up till midnight talking on the phone,
Sure.
But talk about just jacked up the whole time, and not always about hunting either. It'd just be about anything.
Right.
He'd be talking about some cool new idea or something he's seen, and
always
telling him about something going on here, and then it would just, oddly enough, we could just talk for hours straight, and pretty soon it'd be like, we'd try to get off the phone like 18 times, that's just the way it was. And I'm sure it's been like that with him with a whole bunch of people. I mean, just watching, like, the reaction of losing Todd, within the whole community,
Yep.
has just been, like, ultra inspiring, man. Like, gosh, if I just be half as effective on people as Todd has been, that's something, like, that
Absolutely.
would be saying something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just been it's sad. It come from a sad deal, and it's a bummer, like, losing him. But seeing what he's done and how he's affected people, and how he's reached out and had an impact on the world, it's just like it's inspiring, man.
It absolutely is. That was probably the coolest part about the auction Saturday night, and I guess the one thing that I took away, one of the things I guess that I took away is just simply this, that I think you can truly gauge someone's real authenticity. Because look, there's a lot of people that are running around trying to be whoever, just somebody they're not. I mean, I was guilty of that when I started this podcast, trying to be somebody who I wasn't, and I soon realized that I wasn't going to do a good job, and maybe I still don't, or some people might think I still don't, but until you just start to be yourself, which Todd always was, you just,
right.
You're just not going to come off as authentic to people, and that's one thing that Todd always was. And that's the one thing I heard over and over and over again this weekend.
Mm-hmm. So. I agree, man. Cause, and you know how, like, the proof in the pudding on that is that everything I've seen and read, about him, it, like I said, it just all the check marks about him was just like, wow. See, he was the same person to everybody,
right?
Like, and that wasn't just me how I seen him. It wasn't just how you seen him. It wasn't just how his family seen him. It was like everybody that knew him and at least gave him a chance to even know him.
Yep.
They were. Everybody was like, wow, like Todd is he's just an amazing person.
Yep.
Like, you don't meet a lot of Todds in life. You just don't.
Nope. You sure don't.
Plain and simple.
Exactly.
No.
So is there any favorite memory that you have? Crazy story. I'm giving everybody one shot at a crazy story.
Mm-hmm.
Dan Johnson and I sat down on Saturday at the Iowa show, and we probably could have sat there for 3 hours just BSing.
Oh, definitely.
But
yeah.
Is there one favorite memory that you've got?
I think just sitting in his creek with Katie. It was me, him, Jen, and my wife Jen and Katie. We came down there, and we had a chance to spend a whole afternoon, like literally 6, 7, 8 hours straight, just having some drinks down in the creek, in and out of the creek. It was hot, and it was a perfect day. Like, we just hung out and we just talked about everything. I mean, it was just one of those perfect days. You have them every now and then where you're like, man, that was a good day.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of my favorite ones of, and that's why it's always been a thing like we've always talked about. We'd always say, come on, can't wait to have you guys back down. We can go and hang out in the creek down there and, and this and that. And that was a big plan. We were, this summer we were going to come down there, and we were going to actually try to bring the kids, like I was telling Jen just over this past year, and it was like, we got to bring the kids down there, like they'd love it down there, have the creek there, and
sure,
we can meet new little Baker, and it would just be awesome. We wanted to try to finally take that step of like, hey, let's bring the families together this time, not just a get together between the adults or anything. It was like, let's bring the families together. And I regret that we never got to do that, but it, it's okay, it's okay because, like I said, we felt like we were super, super close to each other, and, he'd always talk about my kids and ask about them, and, and legitimately talk about them, and so
Right.
I felt like he got to know my kids, and, you'd hear them in the background, and, this and that, and sometimes put them on the phone for a couple of minutes to tell them to say hi and shit, one other thing is, like, I just realized not just a few days ago, it kind of just dawned on me, like, just randomly through the day I was thinking about him, and I was like, I never got to sit in the tree with him, and I kind of teared up because I was like, man, I just can't imagine what it's been like with me and him in the tree. And, I'd always thought, if there's one thing to learn from it all is, like, you can't bank on tomorrow, next year, the year after. Like, you can't bank on that stuff, because it felt like I banked on that. Like, eventually, his things will settle down. I'll settle down up here, won't be so busy, and we'll be able to start doing some other things other than just, the shows and stuff like that. We'll be able to actually, like, do some stuff with the families together, and and things like that. But
Yep.
one thing that, like, I've learned from it is, like, man, you just can't bank on that shit. You gotta, you literally do gotta, like, think about it as you don't know if you're going to see that person, like, ever again when you do see them, so
Right.
that's one thing I'll carry, about it is that, there's not always a tomorrow, and,
There's not, and we've learned that.
And, one more thing that just kind of, I was looking through the pictures of when we were down there and we were lighting all them arrows and shit on fire, is, while we were shooting bow earlier in the day, I had and he always laughed, and he loved it though, but he gave me crap, and he'd kind of just laugh, but he loved it, and you can tell he loved it. I shot these Ted Nugent arrows, and
Yep.
I refused to change. I refused to change them at the time, and he never would say, "Oh, you got to change them." He just was like, "Oh my God, Psycho's shooting the Nugent arrows. Like, it makes too much sense, like, you're crazy, he's crazy, you should shoot his arrows." Like, so he's like, "Give me one of them arrows." And he's like, "I'm going to launch one of them some bitches out into my property because I want a piece of Psycho here forever." so he grabs one of my arrows, and I said, "Go for it." And there's a picture of him launching that thing, and I think about that arrow as, as like, I wonder where that arrow is. Like, if he ever found it or he's seen it, or if he ever did stumble across it shed hunting or something, because he just launched it out there,
Down into the
it's stuck
cedars.
in somewhere. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure, who knows how far it traveled, but.
Yeah, we talked about that this year. We were talking about actually him cutting down cedars. He's like, "Yeah, I'm going to run into one of Psycho's arrows one day."
Yeah, that was awesome, man. That's cool. It's cool to know that it was out there, and probably still is somewhere.
Well, thanks to Lucas for taking time to share his memories also about Todd with us. That's going to conclude our show for today. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to listen, and again, thank everyone for their support of Todd and the support that we had at the Iowa show and the support that we continue to have. I can't tell you how many emails I've received over the course of the last month, and I keep receiving them daily. So it's really cool to see how Todd affected people. I don't think that in life we often realize what we have until it's gone, and I know that's cliche to say, but it's pretty true. It's not pretty true; it is true, and it's something that we should take seriously and not take people for granted. So, with that, I'll begin to close out the show for today. I don't have a bunch of advertisements or anything like that. You guys know the drill. Jason out.